Joining us tonight for News 4 at 6, I'm Matt Breen.
And I'm Jessica Bowman. We are learning more about what investigators discovered in their search of murder suspect Jason Jones' residence and the role his wife Carrie Jones may have played in the murders of 4 people in Laurel, Nebraska.
KTIV's Katie Koppel has been following the trial for us. She's live outside the Dakota County Courthouse where that trial is being held. Katie, what can you tell us about Carrie Jones' alleged involvement in this case?
Well, Matt and Jessica, Jason Jones is the one on trial, charged with murdering 4 people and then setting their homes on fire back in August of 2022. But much of this morning's testimony actually focused on his wife, Carrie, and her role in the crimes. Investigators say they interviewed Carrie 4 or 5 times between August 5th and December 16th of 2022. Carrie Jones also helped aid officers in the arrest of her husband the morning after the murders. Today in court, Nebraska State Patrol investigator Brad Higgins discussed more evidence pulled from the Jones home and Jason Jones' semi-truck. Now, inside that semi-truck, buckled into the passenger seat, was a doll. Carrie Jones was known to collect dolls, and investigators found roughly a dozen other dolls inside of their home. They also found one on the kitchen table inside the home of victim Michelle Ebeling. In the early days of this trial, a witness who called 911 for a fire at Ebeling's home told the jury he saw Jason and Carrie Jones leave Ebeling's home that night, even speaking to Carrie Jones before the fire department arrived. Now, during his testimony, Assistant Nebraska Attorney General Corey O'Brien asked Sergeant Higgins if they found any evidence Carrie Jones killed their neighbor, Michelle Ebeling.
As you sit here today, do you have any evidence to suggest that she pulled the trigger on Michelle?
Judge, I'm going to object on the relevance and foundation.
Mr. O'Brien.
Also, I would guess I'd add speculation in that.
Mr. O'Brien.
I was asking him, they alleged that Carrie Jones had some involvement with Michelle Ebeling, and I was going to ask him if he found any such evidence to suggest that.
Overruled, objected. You can answer, sir.
We did not find any evidence that she pulled the trigger.
Now, Carrie Jones is facing her own charges in this case, including a first-degree murder charge in the death of Jean Twyford. Court records state Carrie Jones had accused Jean Twyford of harassing her, and that is part of the motive behind the killings. Following Jason Jones' arrest that August, Carrie Jones continued to live in Laurel. 2 neighbors filed protection orders against Carrie Jones, claiming she threatened their lives. Now, the protection order stated Carrie Jones threatened to kill them too, and that she said, quote, "I will kill everyone in Laurel." Investigator Higgins was questioned as to why they didn't investigate these threats further.
So if Carrie Jones was making statements that she was going to kill somebody like she killed somebody else, you didn't think that would be something you should look into to determine if she was involved in the murder of Michelle Ebeling?
I didn't look at those specifics on that harassment order. Correct.
Now, one of those who filed the protection order against Carrie Jones is expected to be called as a witness for Jason Jones' defense. Now, here's something else we learned today. There was a gun magazine left outside of the home of the Twyford residence, and it turns out Carrie's DNA was found on that gun magazine. Now, as I mentioned before, Carrie Jones is also charged in with these crimes. She's facing charges connected to the murder, again, first-degree murder in the death of Jean Twyford. She's also charged with tampering with evidence and being an accessory to a felony. Both of those charges also felonies. She has pleaded not guilty to all 3 charges. Carrie Jones was arrested in December of 2022, and she does remain in jail. Her next court appearance is in November. Her defense team also looking to move her trial out of Cedar County. Now, Jason Jones' murder trial does continue here tomorrow morning in Dakota County District Court. Jason Jones charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and could face the death penalty if convicted. Matt and Jessica.